with allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, with that, I'll start with roll call down there on the end.
Rebecca Johnson.
Brandy Fellas here.
Pam McLeod.
Shaylee Davis.
Matt Jasokis.
Carol Locke.
Jason Henry.
Tim Broderick.
Lauren Ferruccio.
Eliza Jolie.
Ann Pierce.
All right. All rise. Honorable Judge Waltner. Roll call. Next up, public input. Chirp. Okay. Seeing no public input, we'll move on. Agenda review. I'll entertain a motion whenever someone's ready.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Any additions, subtractions? Seeing none, hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Abstentions opposed? Seeing none. Approval of minutes of December 19th, 2023. I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of December 19th, 2023.
Second.
Any additions, subtractions, fixes, changes? Seeing none, hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Abstentions opposed? None. It passes. All right, next up on here. All right, moving right along. Financial reports. We have expenditure report and legal fees. Heidi, do you want to give us any overview?
I have a summary of expense report in front of you. You'll see two functions that are in the red. One is the library media, which is due to the Title I not being encumbered correctly, which I will work on. Otherwise, it's in good shape. Improvement of instruction, that's due to all of the CBA, the teachers contracted 2000 PD, which it will be in the red for the year. Other than that, if there's any questions.
Questions or concerns? Seeing none, hearing none, move on. Prospect Mountain High School student rep.
Yeah, so Wyatt is, yes, he is
Miss him.
playing basketball tonight with the boys' basketball team, so we wish them lots of luck. And he provided us a board report, so I have it here. The highlights, he noticed athletics and some of the wonderful events we had through National Honor Society and the Student Council Winter Bash. And he also highlights that FBLI has been working hard and that there are some student trips coming up that kids are getting excited about. Signora's Spain trip and French 3 and 4's trip to Quebec City. So a lot of strong, good events that are going on. And he also makes a shout out for the unified team and hopes that community members will come out to see those students play. And our boys basketball, girls hockey, ski, all of our teams are doing well.
Okay. Up next, principal report, Principal Davis.
So what I'd like to highlight in my board report tonight is really, I'm making a request that we take a look at some handbook changes that I'm suggesting. Getting in and getting to know the school community, one of the things that was really unclear in the handbook was the policies around student absenteeism. And so we are working with the Juvenile Protection Services for Belknap County, and they work with a lot of area high schools. They come to the high schools and meet with them monthly, and it is a wonderful time to exchange information, but they also are supporting us with some of the more difficulty truancy cases that we're working with, giving us advice, sharing their expertise. And so one of the things that they highlighted is that our attendance policies in our handbook need to be really clear so parents really understand. It was very vague before. and parents just didn't truly understand what was an excused absence. And so even though that we have a small portion of our population that are perhaps misusing this vagueness in the policy, we can't move forward and address truancy with a vague handbook. Because if truancy has to move forward and a student is given all of the community supports that come with being assigned a JPPO, the judge is going to say, what is your policy and is it clear? And we can't have loopholes through that. And so we wanted to be supportive in that area, set out our truancy process clearly in the handbook so parents understood at 3 days unexcused absence, you will receive a truancy note. At 5 days, you will receive another. At 7 days, we're going to have a parent meeting, and we've been having a lot of parent meetings with the students. And it's not a punitive meeting, it's a problem-solving meeting, like how can we support you? How can we help get you to school, get your child to school? What resources do you need to help? I do want to say that to the board that JPPO is a scary word, and people think, oh man, they're throwing the book at this kid. It's not that. What having a JPPO means is that it's a wraparound service for the family. So they're going in and they're trying to kind of address the root causes of absenteeism and truancy, but they're doing it in a way that supports the whole family. Sometimes the parents need help. You know, when you have students in elementary school not attending school, sometimes it's the parents not getting them to school, but in high school it's more the parents feel helpless. And so it's really a great program, and I'm glad that we're getting organized around it. We've had our SROs visit homes. The Alton Police Department, SRO Balent and Davis have been super supportive, and we just need to clear up the student handbook. We also want families that are dealing with illness with their children to be using the nurse more frequently in terms of, I can't really make judgment calls for medical things, neither can our attendance admin assistant, Janice Brophy. There's really, the nurse needs to be involved a little earlier so that she can make those decisions to excuse those absences on behalf of the parents, and sometimes be that first line of medical advice for the families. So we're tightening that up. As we do that, you know, sometimes we've made mistakes and had to correct, you know, the absences and stuff with families, but we're working with them and making sure that we don't unfairly penalize anyone. So you can see that on the front of the third page, it highlights, as of January 12th, we had 39 students who had 3 days unexcused absence, and this is for quarter 2. We had 14 students that had 5 days of absence, 11 students had 7 days, and 15 students had 10 plus days. And so, yeah, it's very important to send a strong message that we are tracking attendance, we've got a process in place, and we're serious about getting these kids in school so that they can find their academic success.
So you want to propose new language, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I wrote kind of some of the rationale in the board report, but we have it here in our packet.
Action item.
So you can see it in blue, the
area
suggested. Yeah, and so that'll be your action items later on.
All righty.
And isn't one of these thresholds state law, the 10-day threshold?
Yes.
Is state law?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Yeah, and we also, when we were writing this process, we did look at other Lakes Region high schools and compared their student handbooks for absenteeism, for truancy, and we also received a checklist. So we have a checklist because what's important to us is that every student is treated uniformly. No, there's no special deals on attendance. Every family can expect that we're going to have those same responses. But we work closely with the nurse because the nurse can get doctor's notes, the nurse can talk to doctors, and then she comes back and says, hey, these are excused, these aren't truancies. So, and then we also, like I said, for those complex situations, when we meet monthly with the juvenile services people, they've given us some great advice.
And some students have 504 plans, correct?
Yes.
That the nurse is in charge of?
Yes.
So that she knows if they have excused absences for a chronic health issue.
Yeah,
correct?
that's right. And Amanda Russell coordinates our 504s. So we do meet with the school counseling department. We meet weekly as an intervention team. The nurse, Amanda Russell's part of that. The school counselors are part of that. And so we often will talk about some of these more difficult truancy cases and make decisions on moving forward.
When you say here that parents can call up to 3 times to obtain an excused absence, and then the next sentence, absences beyond 3 days, is that excused absences beyond 3 days will count towards truancy? Or unexcused absences?
Unexcused absences. So, you know, what we were finding is that that if a parent is frequently calling and saying, Chaley has a stomach ache and it's a Monday, and then the following Tuesday, Chaley's home with the stomach ache, and the following Thursday, Chaley's home with the stomach ache. So you have those 3 days. Beyond that, they're going to need to start talking with the nurse, because the nurse can make some of those determinations, and then we found like sometimes the nurse calls home and finds out, oh, there is an ongoing health issue. The parent just hasn't been reporting that, and then we can go back. So we allow leeway for the parents to call out up to 3 times and be like, Chaley's got a headache today, she's not coming in. But then after those 3 days, they need to start communicating with the nurse, because those parent phone calls that go in some cases really add up, because the parent is willing to call out the student. And so this provides more opportunity for conversation to say, okay, what's going on? You know, your child is missing like once a week or 2 days every other week, and so that's the case. Yeah. The other thing on the back that's action item later is we've got an overnight field trip request that's going to be coming your way. And then I also want to recognize 2 students. Nathan Lovett, he earned national recognition from the College Board because he had a GPA of 3.5 or higher and an outstanding performance on the PSAT portion NMSQT test. So we recognized him in our Good News Assembly, and we're also recognizing him here for his fantastic achievement.
That's great.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And then Parker Wood at the Plymouth Track and Field Meet on December 16th, he threw 42 feet in the shot put, which beats the school record of 41 feet.
Wow.
I think I'm a little bit off, but in the inches. However, he did it. So it's pretty exciting.
That's very good.
That's great. Congratulations to both.
And then if you take some time, you'll see that we are recognizing the Student of the Month, and we're recognizing them through the acronym PROSPECT. And this year, instead of just recognizing one student from any grade, we're recognizing a student from each grade. So for me, you know, the admin team, when we first began discussing it over the summer, felt that this was a way to recognize great behavior from 4 students a month. So next month you will know what our December Student of the Month is, because we pushed back the assembly till next week.
Do they get parking spots still?
So no. So yeah, there's one Student of the Month parking spot.
I've been
and
parking in it consistently. I'm the student of the
good
month.
for you. Good for you. I've been tempted.
Well, only in the evening.
So I think it would be fun to say these names out loud, if that's okay.
Yeah.
If I have time. So the September Student of the Month, freshman Jude Dumont, sophomore Sophia Capsalis, junior Wyatt Barney, and senior Lexi Booker. And the Student of the Month emphasis was pride for September. For October, it was respect and responsibility. And freshman Sydney Grasso, sophomore Avery Genta, junior DeMonica Charles, and senior Pearl Coburn. November Student of the Month, the emphasis was ownership, not just for academic, but within one's community as well, which is our school, and positively impacting that community. And for November, freshman Maddie Howlett, sophomore Delaney Trendle, junior Patrick Mott, and senior Dylan Miller.
Nice.
have any questions or for the principal? Seeing none, we'll move on to, in our packet, technology report.
Just want to point out that the technology report in your packet addresses some specific questions that came up at the last board meeting about Wi-Fi coverage, particularly down in this end of the building. And I think I'm pleased to tell you that our website and mobile app calendars should be properly syncing with sports calendars. I will not bore you with the unpleasant details, but we were able to track back to the source of especially the middle school problem and correct it.
They allowed you to use technology. Oh, my bad. I'm here to help. All right. If I would say, any questions on that? All right, curriculum assessment.
Good evening. In your packet, you have the data dashboard for the first quarter of the school year. In that packet, there's information around the state assessment data, graduation rates, the class of 2024, their pathways, our core values, co-curricular participation, attendance rates, and as Chaley pointed out, some truancy information. And so this is the information that we'll be bringing to you on a quarterly basis. And I can quickly go through this information. If you take a look on the first page, the second page, those are our SAT scores versus the state scores. If you take a look at over the last few years, where the state has been above us, we're slowly closing the gap in terms of the state scores. This past year, our participants in grade 11 scored a combination of 992 compared to the state at 994. So we continue to grow. While it's not a huge growth, it's still growth while the state is declining. And so we'll continue to monitor that piece of it. We had approximately 2/3 of our kids take the SATs, so the others have opted out in that comparison. The next page shows the breakdown of the proficiency status in ELA and mathematics. Our ELA program exceeded the state ELA proficiency. Our kids scored 69% on the proficiency rate compared to 60% at the state rate. In mathematics, we stayed consistent in terms of our percentages. Our percentages 28% or 7% below the state average. Again, if you take a look at both our scores and the state scores, mathematics continues to be an area where we need to focus in a lot on that piece of it. Both the department heads have received from me a breakdown of this information, sample questions that go along with that, and so we'll be meeting with them to kind of go through and dig a little bit deeper on the types of questions that our kids are struggling with, whether it's a level 1, level 2, or level 3. And really kind of digging down and seeing where the gaps are, but also start to look and see trends along that way. Again, we're doing STAR testing, so our hope is that we can start to see the trends in 8th, 9th grade, as well as 10th grade, because some of the STAR stuff aligns closely to our state testing. Moving on, if you take a look at our graduation data is strong. When you look at the number of kids who are graduating, and the percentage, 98 or 99%, if you will, of our students passed or graduated last year. A small number of students there were even looking at being retained. So again, that number continues to grow. And if you look at the region that we're in, our graduation rate is the highest in this area. So when you look at, again, not mentioning any schools, but again, we can our kids are getting to the finish line in a variety of ways, which is great. I always look at it from the dropout pieces of it, if the kids are doing the high set, and if our kids aren't graduating and they're choosing to go another route, at least they're walking out of here with something, whether it's the high set or some sort of alternative. So again, great job for our faculty and staff to continue to push forward with that. The next page is new information. We've been talking about this year in terms of looking at pathways. So our school counseling department is working diligently to get through all of the pathways where all of our current students They're pretty much done, freshmen, sophomore, and seniors. They're working on the juniors now. They met today with the school counselors down for the elementary schools. The elementary counselors will be doing the way to portion of the pathway, if you will, and all of our kids coming up next year will have a pathway completed. So as they walk in, we'll have an opportunity to see where they're at. What I find very interesting in this is that when we start to talk about this idea of tracking or even looking at electives down the line, this type of data is certainly going to help us, because now we see where our kids are focused, where they want to go, and what they want to do when they graduate. Staggering to me is that if you look at health science pathway, 17 of our students who are about to graduate are heading in that area, or they're focused in that area. So when I look at this, I say, okay, what are their opportunities either here or at Lakes Region? And so if they're not going to Lakes Region, or if there's not enough room up there, this is great information for Lakes Region to say, maybe we need to add another section. Or we take a look at it from here and say, do we need to offer some electives in this area? And you'll see as some of the newer ones are coming up, human services pathway. Again, what do we offer? Arts, audio, video, tech, and communications. Again, being able to offer some of those courses here, and not always having to rely on the Lakes Region Tech Center for our students to have to go up there. So, and again, we have 12 kids that are undecided at this point, and so as we work through that, the school counseling department will continue to work with them as we go through this. But again, I think it's important for us to see 40 kids looking at 4-year colleges, 23 looking at 2 years. Again, that's important information. And so when we start to look over the years now, we should be able to start to create a bank of classes that we can go to, especially when we start to see kids coming up and saying, hey, well, 2 years ago we had all these kids in this area, they're not here, this is a new focus, right? So important information, and I really appreciate the job that our school counseling department has done getting this information as quickly as they have. Moving on to core values, again, when we think about the idea of empathy, diversity, grit, integrity, intellectual curiosity, and self-control. Last year, the 2 areas that we were the lowest in terms of overall was grit and intellectual curiosity. And so this is a breakdown of each of the grade levels as a whole, and then it breaks it down by year of graduation. So again, it's important to track those things because I think as we look at our mission, vision, and core values, it allows us to show the kids that this stuff is important. As we go forward, conversations will start taking place as to whether or not we want this information on transcripts and what can that do to support kids. We'll even have those conversations at the elementary schools as well, because some of this information can be very important as kids look to go, whether they go off to college or even into the workforce. It's good information, and it puts some teeth into it so that kids understand that there's a piece to that. Changing some things up slightly, we'll be looking at kids having to do some self-reflection on this, as well as the teacher doing some reporting out on that. Again, this is not based on every course, every class. We picked out 2 classes and had the teachers go ahead and do that. So we have to figure out how do we do it if we wanted to do it for each block, for each kid, and look at 5 different ways of doing that. So. Discipline, again, another piece that we wanted to bring in that we hadn't in the past. One of the things that we talked about is that if you look at the total events for this year compared to years past, it's higher. And so part of that reason, I believe, is that we've put some things in place. There's an accountability that's going on. I think the teachers feel supported because there are follow-throughs with when a kid skips a class, they're accountable for that. When a kid does something, there's accountability for that. And so what I would see is that, yeah, we're a little concerned right now, but over time, let's see what that does, because if we start to see a decline, then we understand that the things that we put in place, the accountability, kids are starting to understand, okay. Chaley had talked about this at the faculty meeting. Kids are realizing that skipping a 45-minute class really isn't worth skipping when they get an 80-minute or 90-minute detention. They're sitting there going, so now I'm taking 90 minutes of my own time because I missed 45 minutes of somebody else's time. Maybe I'll just go to class now instead of doing that. So again, you can see the breakdown of what's going on there. Just to kind of highlight, so resolution with an OSS, so that's sort of the incident came in. And as a result of that incident, the result was an OSS or an ISS. So we'll continue to track that data over time. The second to last page are our sports, taking a look again, co-curricular activities. As kids are connected with the school, their behavior and their academics obviously improve, so that's an important piece. You can see that there was a slight drop off from our fall sports participation from 123 to 116. But if you look at the winter one grew, which is great because we don't offer a lot in the winter. We added some wrestling this year, which has helped some numbers, but again, that means our numbers are growing in the winter, which is great. And so we'll continue to take a look at that. And then obviously the percentage rate based off our overall. So we have about 28% of our overall population participating in fall athletics. So we'd like to see that number continue to grow.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mention winter cheer, spirit, and wrestling in my report, but they're doing well too.
And the last page,
And indoor track.
last page, attendance rates. Again, we think it's important for not only our students to see, but also our faculty to see our attendance rates. Again, if you take a look at December there, you see it's a huge drop. We went through that flu bug that went around and kind of decimated some of our departments and stuff like that. But consistently, though, when you look at it, our faculty attendance rate is solid, and our student attendance rate is pretty good. But it kind of goes in, if you look at the truancy below it, kind of coincides with those students that are down there are reflected in the attendance rates above. So. Again, all of these pieces of information give us a good report on, what is Prospect Mountain High School, and we'll continue to track those things as we go. So, if there's other things that you guys would like to see, please let me know.
I think this is a good start. Thank you for putting this together. I think it's a nice balance of some things that are super positive and some other things that are just our reality. So I think that's great.
How is our sub coverage? How are subs doing?
We have a solid group of substitutes that do a really fantastic job for us.
Good.
And so we consistently have subs. There are days where we do need teacher coverage. As Matt mentioned, there was a fierce flu, and it would take people out for 5 days. And then on top of that, COVID is still alive and well in the building. So we do have those long-term 5-day absences, sometimes 7. So we have been, I think that Amanda Hook has done a great job managing that and being efficient about it. We do have some days when teachers need to pitch in if it's especially high. But overall, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Just, the curriculum committee update, we did meet in January. We're going to be scheduling another meeting either in February or March. But our focus has been on taking a look at the tracking pieces of it and continuing along those pathways. Today, as part of our professional development, our faculty and staff here at the high school began the morning by going through a restorative practice session with Shaylee and Amanda Russell. Restorative practice is one of the school goals, so they're working on that relationship building. Again, we're doing a lot of introductory stuff this year with the understanding of next year really kind of putting it to practice. In the middle of that, we did an educational equity audit. Teachers went through and we used a survey from the Great Schools Partnership that looked at a variety of things that we do here at the high school to see if there are any inequities that are going on with program of studies, classes, GPA, you name it. So there's a whole piece there as part of our cultural competency piece. We'll do similar stuff at the elementary school, but this particular survey was geared more towards a high school. And so we went through and did that. Unfortunately, during our conversation afterwards, we had to put a stop to it because we had to move our vehicles to provide some extra parking spaces for voting. So that kind of threw a wrench into that midday piece of it. And then this afternoon, we did a lot of work around the tracking, really kind of giving them some baseline information, giving them opportunities to explore different areas based on what they felt comfortable with. So we did a couple rounds of that, and then we'll continue working that through not only our department heads, but also during our faculty and additional professional development days. So overall, pretty positive day.
Good, good.
At least I thought so.
I agree.
Well, the committee decided we'd put the beginning of it to September of 2025 so that the teachers would have time for more training.
Yeah, so we explained that today, that we're gonna take the crock pot method versus the microwave and go slow and.
That's kind of nice, I like that analogy.
Put it on simmer.
It tastes better.
Yes?
Thank you.
Any questions? Oh, all right. Moving on to the superintendent's report.
I asked him to join us this evening, and first, for me, so that he can go home, I want you to meet Jim LeClaire, our new facilities manager here at the high school. He's had, I think, enough time now to get to know the place and the staff, and to mark that occasion, we sat down about a week ago and we talked about capital planning. So welcome to Prospect, Jim. He has worked with the vendor that Sean Asdot got us started with, and I don't know if it was dark when you all drove in this evening, but if it was, you might have been blinded by the lights over the driveway. And maybe you never noticed how few there were before, but you can sure tell now that they're all, almost all turned on. We've got a couple down at the end. We still have to chase some shorts in. Jim is now working with, I'm not going to make him talk because it's his first time here. Next time he can just talk to himself. He's still working with that vendor on what are probably at least 2, maybe 3 more phases of that project. There are exterior lights on the building that are out and need to be replaced, and then there are the light poles in the parking lots. That's either 1 big or 2 smaller capital projects. We have added all of that to the 5-year capital plan, so however that gets funded going forward, we'll be prepared to do it. Jim has, again, welcome, is picking up our exterior door replacement, ESSER-funded project. We have been approved by the Department of Education under that grant program to spend about $57,200 or $500 replacing the exterior doors that need replacement. There are a couple right there, and reconditioning the others. So we have some that needed new hinges. We have some that just need to be sanded and kind of repainted, and it's all in there. So this summer, this grant runs through next September 30th. So this summer that work can all be done. Some of them really need it. You learned at your last meeting, and Jim's working on identifying solutions and potential costs, that when the wind blows sideways very hard and it rains at the same time, water drips through this wall right here and comes down on this floor. That was a nice surprise for us not too long ago. So that's not in the 5-year capital plan, but we'll get back to you. So I just wanted y'all to have a face to associate with the name, and going forward, particularly Buildings and Grounds Committee, we'll be meeting with Jim.
Would you like to say anything?
Thanks for having me here.
How about yourself and your family?
Well, I have 3 kids. They were all out skiing today, having a good time. So
Nice.
They're 9, 7, and 5. So I'm busy. As far as this goes, I had some people out looking. We're gonna have to probably open it up, so it's not really convenient to do it with this kind of weather. So probably early spring we'll open up and really see what's going on behind there, because I'm sure there's gonna be interior damage as well with just water running through like that. So if you go outside and look, you can see the window sills are just, there's nothing left of them. So I'm assuming it's just running, hitting the windows and coming in. So they're gonna have to open up to see to the extent of, you know, is it gonna be window replacement as well, or can they just, you know, work around siding, like fix inside and things like that. So we'll get to that. And then the heat in here is fun. There's a lot of stuff going on with the heat this day, but we're getting there. Slowly but surely. We got most of the rooms that were just running hot, now it's working properly, and we're just finding a few random actuators that need to get replaced because they're just getting older. You know, they're 20 years old, so they're kind of wearing on. So The roof, is the roof on the Capitol plan that was on?
The flat roof.
Flat roof, yeah.
Yes, we don't say the R word generally.
Yeah, we don't talk
But
about
yes,
that.
it is.
Yeah, first rule of thumb.
That's the glitch with that slushy thing where we had like 6 inches of snow.
That one.
The rain was not, but nothing. A lot of it was just the drains got clogged up with all the slush going in, so we were able to clean those up. But since after we got that, there hasn't really been much, but there's probably needs to be some patchwork and things like that in the short term, but it's gonna need to be replaced in the long term, so.
You're supposed to have positive news tonight, okay? This is your first meeting.
It's not news, though.
I know it's not
Rule
news.
number 1 is no surprises.
There's no surprises.
We all know about the flat roof.
Yeah.
I think
Well, I mean, I know like the driveway, like, I know the parking lot, I believe is in the long term, like, down the road, things like that, but, the short term stuff, like the lighting really needs to get fixed. That's- And then we also got some bids out for the concrete work for in the front, to just take out the whole patches right by the main entry and redo them. So.
They know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it alone.
Well, welcome.
Yes, thank you.
We're
Thank
happy
you.
to have you.
Go home with the kids.
Thanks for
man.
coming, Jim. Thank you very much for
You got a lot of
coming,
kids.
everybody.
I gotta go see what's going on in the gym first before. They started to tear it down.
No, not till 7.
Yeah. Thank you, have a good rest of the meeting.
You too.
Thank you.
So the Alton Budget Committee met with us earlier this month and unanimously recommended all articles related to the Alton schools. The Barnstead Budget Committee has met twice, has one meeting still to go next week, so I can't report on their votes, but I can say we've had good meetings, and they'll see warrant articles next week, which all aligns with capital planning, right? This is, so you can really hear it just in the last 5 minutes. It's not a new school anymore. So for the next 20 years, this is reality, right? Planning for the proactive maintenance of this building is the right thing to do for the next 20 years. And if you and future boards, because I understand it won't necessarily be all of you or all of us, but if you and future boards continue to take that seriously, then when this place turns 40 years old, it will still look new, like it does now. It can be done, and it can be done here. And we are on the right track to do that. I have some tuition agreement news in non-public and personnel-related issue for non-public. Otherwise, I will defer my other report items to next month if that's acceptable to you.
Works for me. Anybody have any questions of the superintendent? Right. Seeing none, we'll move right on. Action items, overnight field trip.
I make a motion to approve the proposed overnight field trip for FBLA.
Second.
Can I ask why it's so expensive for one overnight? Do you know? Are there activities affiliated with that?
And there, you know, it's the cost of the hotel room, cost of the transportation, and then the cost of attending the workshops and the conference. I haven't
Okay.
seen a breakdown of it.
No, that's fine. It just seemed a bit high to me
Yeah.
for one night.
Yeah, you're right. And the good news is that they do a ton of fundraising, so the kids are pitching in, but they're doing a lot of the fundraising
Good.
too. But I'm happy to get a breakdown for you. I can bring that next time.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause they're not
Yeah,
going till
that's an
April.
expensive evening.
And day,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Does sound expensive to me, but I
So
mean,
they're
I'm happy
gonna-
for the kids. It just, I hope it didn't exclude anyone because it costs so much. That's all.
Yeah, that's a great question, so I'll look into that for you. I believe that what they're doing is they're leaving early one morning, spending the whole day, spending the night, spending the next day, and then coming back.
late.
Yeah.
Okay.
So would you like to hold on to next month to go through before you see a breakdown? Or would you
Yeah, we
like-
can wait. I just, you know, I
Or does it need to be approved so that they can move forward?
Yeah,
I think they probably need approval.
The date.
yeah, I
It's
think
not
so.
till April.
April 3rd.
April 3rd.
No, I don't mind approving. I mean, I don't know.
No, I think we're all in support of approving, it's just that it's, if it's, I think that the items that you just enumerated, it just seems like some of it should be covered somehow, like attending the,
I
Workshops
don't
and
suppose
conferences.
it's $39.20 for all students.
no, it's, well, so it breaks down to about $300 a student, if that's the
Right.
case.
That's gonna be
Which,
cool.
which is just a lot for overnight, or day and night, but I mean, it just seems like maybe the attendance to the actual thing should somehow be covered, or should have some sort of additional support. I understand that students would have to pay something,
Right.
but,
Well, it has the school,
do you know what
the
I'm
school's
saying?
van, they're taking the school's van at least, so that helps, I'm sure, with
Are
the
you
transportation.
Well,
Can I make a
know.
motion to approve it, and then we can look for more details later?
Oh, is there money in the budget for
I have
that?
a clarifying
I
question. Are you
guess that's-
suggesting that the board provide some financial support for this?
do we have
I mean,
money?
we supported the robotics when they went, so why can't we support, this is a similar event, it's a FBLA. I mean, obviously, we're not gonna fund the whole trip,
No,
but
right.
if we could provide some support, I think that would be fantastic.
What would be comfortable supporting?
well, I can find out too how much has been fundraised already
Yeah, we don't
by
know how much
FBLA.
they've
They
already
do-
raised.
they
They've
do
already,
some of
could have
that.
raised the whole amount for all we know.
But I
Well,
think any,
That's a good exercise for
I think it's
FBLA to
wonderful.
provide that report to administration.
so you could,
Yes.
so you could approve, so we could approve the trip tonight, come back for next month with a breakdown and possible vote of funding some of it.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
Was that your
sounds
motion?
good.
Yes, I think that was my motion.
That was your motion?
I'll second
And
that.
that was a second over there? All right,
you
that was a
for
great
thinking of
motion. I do
that.
like that motion.
So, thank you.
All in favor? Aye. All right.
And they likely have that because they have a treasurer.
Yeah.
Just,
No, no.
I don't want a child to be left out because they
I,
can't afford it.
I appreciate that.
All right, we have now next up the amendment for the student handbook, which is in our packet, in the line in blue.
I make a motion to approve the changes.
What is this for?
This is for the absence and tardy procedures. I'm just making a motion so that we can then,
So I'd like to, go ahead,
so that we can then discuss it.
go ahead.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion to approve the changes to the absence and tardy procedures for the PMHS procedure, policy book, whatever it is.
Okay, second.
Okay.
Now it's open for discussion.
I'd actually like to add that to a first reading. I'm not comfortable approving it without actually reading, taking a minute to look it over. So if we could add it to first read and then discuss it at the next one.
Well, it affects their day-to-day operations.
Well, I mean, some of it is like you want a copy of an obituary if somebody passes away. I mean, it gets a little dicey because it says earlier in our policy, truancy is an absence without administration or parent approval. So technically, if a parent calls their child out, they are not truant. If they want to call them out once a week, per our policy, they've called them out and they're allowed to do so.
Right,
So-
that's why they want to tighten it up.
Right, so I just think it should be reviewed first and discussed.
I don't disagree with you. I think it's a great thing to address the truancy. It's obviously a problem, especially the ones that are, 15 times and over, or 10 times and over. I guess I feel, that some of the initial policy as written here for when a parent is calling a student out is a little intrusive, and a little,
I mean, I can remember when my kids were in school, we just said, you guys just stated with the teachers that you've had 72% attendance for teachers in December because they were out from 5 to 7 days with the bug. But per this policy, if you're a student out 5 to 7 days with the bug, you need to get a doctor's note. And I used to argue when my kids went here, if my kid has the flu, I'm not driving him to the doctor, paying a copay and all that just to get a note to excuse him from school. And that's what this policy wants parents to do, and I just would like the opportunity to read it and maybe discuss it a little more before we slam down the
Was this in the packet in advance?
truancy hammer.
Yeah.
So, 2 weeks now? Okay.
I,
That's our opportunity to read it in advance.
And so the board is aware, we do contact staff who are out for 5 consecutive days and ask for doctor's notes.
I'm just stating my
Yep.
feelings, doesn't mean that everybody has to agree.
I don't think the first reading, second reading thing really applies here because it goes into the handbook. It's a different,
It's every time we make a change, it's different whether it applies or not.
yeah, it's a different
That's okay.
document.
Yeah, I support the effort to combat the truancy. I just feel like the documentation is a little,
So you have so we can do this, you got a motion and a second on the floor, you would have to take action on that motion, so I'll do a roll call on
Can I
the
just
motion.
also say, though, it says here, day 3, a doctor's note may be required after talking to the nurse. It doesn't say that it will be required. And so the nurse can make the determination. If it's a flu, you don't go to the doctor, And so if the parent is saying the child has the flu, I can't get her to the doctor, then the nurse can make that determination, do you see? So,
But then we should,
hold on, what is actually going to happen if it's unexcused? Is that, am I missing
Right.
part of this? Because what
Yeah.
is, so
we can-
what if my kid is out for 5 days?
It's on the last page, Ann, before stuff.
Okay, so a letter is gonna come home. Yeah.
So
The
these-
one thing I'd like to add is that this information that you see here, the 3, the 5, the 7, and the 10, that's coming from the JPPOs and stuff like that, so that when we go through the process of truancy, if we don't check those boxes, they won't even look at potentially going forward with a CHINS petition or any of that stuff. So, and that's kind of what we're looking in terms of tightening this up, is to make sure that when we send a letter, we do a visit with the SRO, stuff
Right.
like that. Again, it's all documented in that piece, so.
And what I'd like to bring out, is that some of these paragraphs that we have crossed through, it's the same information, but it's bulleted, because we wanted to make it really easy for people to kind of see the different reasons why a student could be absent, because it wasn't buried in a paragraph. So the blue under that first crossed out paragraph, all of that is just bulleted beneath. We're not really adding additional information, or we're clarifying. So when it said such other good causes, we added in examples of a college visit or job shadowing, because we didn't have that in there, and that was a common question that parents were asking us. So we wanted them to know, yeah, you do have that flexibility. So that's not new information. The next paragraph, it was really vague for parents, and it was vague for us to be able to determine. And so we thought, when we're dealing, we're now deep enough into the process that we're recognizing where the hiccups are, where it's getting caught. And it's hard when a parent is habitually calling their child out for nondescript absences around illness. And we thought we, as myself, the principal, or the attendance assistant, should not be making those determinations, that they really need to talk to the nurse if the student is ill. And so what we're hoping is that sometimes school avoidance looks like a stomach ache. Anxiety can look like a stomach ache. And so we're if we go forward and we're following this truancy, the judges or the JPPOs do need to see that we have clear procedures in place and that we're following through.
Right, and I'm fine with the 357. It's
Yeah.
just it's really, I don't like the language, and I don't like the language on page 2 where it says that must be accompanied by a doctor note, a court document, an obituary, or other documents supporting the claimed reason for non-attendance. That's
That's,
3 days, and it also kind of bothers me that, and this was in the original one as well, that students will receive no credit for any assignment affected by truancy.
wait a second.
So I'm just saying, those are the things that bother me, and
So
not sure.
So under, when you have like the documentation,
Yeah,
that's again bulleted from the original handbook. So in the original handbook on the page before, it says for other absences, this is the crossed out, parents must provide written notice or written excuse that states one of these reasons for non-attendance. That's the original language. I've just bulleted it out.
Right, but
So-
you crossed out, the principal may require parents to provide additional documentation in support of their written notice. And you've now changed it to parents must
Right.
provide that.
And
So
that's-
if I
I
call
think-
you and say that we had a death in the family, I shouldn't be required to provide an obituary. Or if I have a religious holiday that I have my child out for, I shouldn't have to, how do you prove it's a religious holiday?
Sure, and I will say that in terms, we have not required obituaries. What I will say is that if you have a family that you're dealing with chronic truancy, having this in here is helpful. And so that's what it's for. In terms of what we're requiring, I've had conversations and emails with people that have lost family members, and it's been that I've said, I'm sorry for your loss, and I've not required that. But if we're dealing with someone who is absent and sick all the time,
but under this new language, you're saying must. You're not
Right.
saying may, you're saying
Right.
must.
Would it
So-
make sense to change that back to the principal may provide and leave everything else the same?
Yes, I would.
Yes.
or you can say
Or may
parent should
request.
provide.
No.
But again, there's.
No, that's putting it on the parent, and that's not fair.
Well, I
That's-
do, and I just feel like culturally, and I don't know about ACS, but like, I had 3 kids at Bardstead for years until this year, now one's in the high school, but, you know, at Barnstead, if I forgot to get the dentist's note and I walked in and said, we just came from the dentist, like, it was no big deal. Here, it's everything is like assume the worst. So like Delaney went to a varsity game because she was put on the varsity team. And she is told she's going to have a detention because the roster wasn't changed and she was still on the JV team. It got fixed, but she was stressed out about it. She's like talking to, like, we're assuming that everybody's bad, and I understand you need rules for the ones that are struggling.
Right.
But I agree, like, it's just over the top. I send my kids to school, my kids are going to be there, but if somebody dies in my family and I'm told I have to produce an obituary, like, it's just not gonna happen.
No, it's-
Because I feel like it is intrusive, like, why do you need an obituary? If I'm telling you they have to go to a funeral.
I will say, I think Chili's example of, and maybe that's where we change that word to may, and I think that does make a big difference. It's for those habitual offenders, and I mean this respectfully, but we've dealt with this at my work, and when your grandfather has died 5 times,
Right, now
we
where's
ask
the
for the
obituary?
obituary,
Right,
and when
and
you
that's
provide
fine.
a doctored one. So if it's getting to be a trend that needs to be something that we ask to be produced, I think that's a one-off. And so
And
having
she
that
needs the
softer language
policy- They need the policy to be able to
to
back
be
that.
able to back that up.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate where it's coming from. Maybe soften it so that you have the ability to request it on an as-needed basis versus.
Could we propose
Just change
maybe
the
that
words.
she change some things, soften some language, and then send it out by email? Could we is that allowed? We could come to consensus through email? So that we're not holding her up for a whole month? I don't want to hold her up for a whole month.
I mean, if it's that one statement,
I
there's
have
3 words we could change, and it would change the
I
tone.
wanted to talk about the next paragraph that looks like it had been in there. For say vacation, your parents are going on vacation. It's, you tell the school, and it's up to the principal to determine whether or not she or he seems that's gonna be an acceptable or unacceptable. I feel like it needs to be more of a committee, like if you have a straight A student and their parents book a vacation and they're gonna be gone for 5 days and then they happen to get the flu, 2 months later, and now you're at, say, 10 days, if maybe that is a meeting with the principal in their homeroom and maybe their advisor to say, listen, this kid is acceptable in class, he's a star athlete, he's this, instead of it just being one person's sole discretion of, nope, this is, I don't know.
So
And then they
if a student takes a family vacation, so the way the handbook reads, that the principal can excuse up to 5 days per year. If we have had students who took that 5-day already and then got COVID and another 5, none of that is truancy. Those are all excused absences. So those things don't count. If obituary was in the original language, if you want, we are not asking people for obituaries. And I think that if there was a truancy issue with the family, then we could, at that point, if there was a death, say, okay, we're dealing with this, so we can take out obituary. I do think that asking families to provide doctor's notes it's what other high schools do. This is not out of the ordinary to say you have to verify your absence. And I understand that 90% of our families are going to do what they want to do. But there is also favoritism that takes place in school communities. And, I know your parents, I went to school with your parents, I'm gonna look away because you're absent a lot. We can't pick and choose what families or students we pursue in making sure those kids come to school. It's not fair to make special deals for some families, like you as a family, because I know you, and I think you're a good family, you don't have to provide doctor's notes, but this family does have. That I think that we have to be consistent with all of our families. So I get that.
Where did we go? I guess I feel like we just took a left turn into.
Yeah, so first of all, there's too many people on too many different things. What I'm gonna do is call a roll call vote on what we have on the floor right now.
Okay.
So on the floor right now was to pass this, to vote to pass this as it is. So I'm gonna take a roll call vote with that starting down at the end.
No.
Right.
No.
Yes.
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 No.
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 Where we at?
I don't know. Did you count?
Didn't pass. 5-4 didn't pass.
Okay, that failed. So my suggestion is we table this to next month. Let them come back with, because we're not gonna be able to fix it tonight, is table to next month. Do we need to have the policy committee sit down and review this as well?
I think just changing that
Yeah, I
word
just
to
wanted
may
the
makes
first
a
read,
lot of
that was
us.
all.
It wasn't just one word, I'm hearing more than just
Yeah,
one
me
word.
too. I'm
It's,
hearing
it's,
more.
I'm hearing multiple sections is what I'm hearing, that's the problem. Or, like you said here, is, are you comfortable with being rewritten for some of the things that you've heard tonight, putting it back out to us to an email and taking a consensus vote?
That works for
What you
me.
just said. Try it.
Are you good with that? We can try it?
I'd like to maybe reiterate what I've heard.
Sure.
I've heard two things. That the word obituary, which is in the original language and the new language, is an issue. So I would remove that.
So, I don't want to speak for anybody, but I think it's okay that that's in there. What I don't think is okay is that we're requiring it. I think, like, the original language was like maybe
Yeah, I
asked,
think if we
and
put that back,
right,
we'll all be
because
happy.
if you have somebody
whole
that's
paragraph.
calling in every other week because another family member died, I think that's fair enough to say we need to see an obituary, and it is in the policy that we can request it. But I don't think we want it to say that parents are always going to have to provide those.
And I would also like to add that, this is a small town, these are small towns. I'm not saying that there should be fair treatment or unfair treatment, but not having to provide a doctor's note because you know that I was actually at the doctor, I mean, that's I just feel like we're losing.
I know, I've come to school with her with like, she's on crutches because we just went to the doctor and they're like, oh, you need to get the note. And so now I've got to drive back to get the note to like, so I hear what you're saying. It needs to be consistent, but at the same time, it's like.
The doctor should email
Like,
that to you. You
it's a
shouldn't have to
headache.
drive back.
It's a headache.
Tell your doctor to email it.
I'm happy to meet and go over it if that's what is gonna be easier as well.
Sit down as a suggestion too as well, so.
So for your next meeting, and so I have a general rule that I try to live by, which is if we decide something might not be working the way we want it to, but it has been the way it is for a long time, a few more weeks don't matter. That's one of my rules to live by. This language represents the application of a board policy. It is policy JH, attendance, absenteeism, and truancy. So in the next few weeks, I invite you, and I might ask Debbie to send out a link or just a copy of it, to look at the actual policy, your board-approved policy, which then this is the building leader's attempt to operationalize. And that might help add context or bring you to the table next month saying, hey, let's talk about a change in the policy. And if you do that, I suggest you look at the state law that requires you to have this policy and requires some of these elements to be in it. I think that'll help the discussion.
And the other thing I'll add is, you know, we have an interim principal after a long-time principal, and then next year we're gonna have a different principal. So the kids, regardless, are gonna feel whiplash with changes in policies one way or another. I just, like, just for preparation, that's gonna happen next year as well, depending on how different administrators choose to apply different policies.
That's a good point.
So it sounds like bring it back next month.
Okay.
With, I like the idea with the, look at our policies and see if it matches up. So bring it back next month. We'll go from there.
So bring
okay with
back
that?
this as it is next month.
No, I'll look at the policies that we already have as a school board policy, see if it matches up and see if you want to make any changes. We'll be presenting it again basically next month.
We're gonna look
Would
at
it
the
be
policy.
appropriate for individual board members to reach out and have that one-to-one discussion with their concerns in the interim to save time?
That's fine. I don't have a problem with one-on-one.
Well,
Not that I wanna,
You want work?
isn't that the whole point of the policy committee?
yeah, it is.
General meeting?
I think
That
we-
was
I
my,
think
that was my
we-
original question about policy committee.
I can't believe these words are coming out of my mouth, but I think we need to have a meeting.
All right, you're gonna have a policy committee meeting, and then we'll see y'all next month on this.
I know I
Get
said it.
report out there, Ann. We'll be waiting to hear. You and Brandy.
I said just change the word may.
All right. So that's where we're at with this.
Okay.
Next section. Yeah. Anybody, policies, first reading? First reading?
So it's a dash R. It's a dash R.
Oh, yeah.
It does not require board approval. You do have a longstanding practice of approving these dash Rs, which are procedures. So here it is for your review, action or no action. The way the law works, you create and approve the policy, and then the procedure are developed by staff. So, but here it is for your review. Vote, don't vote, do what you choose. Tell us to change it and we will.
I don't think we should approve dash Rs. And I think it looks good.
Well, then we will
So
go
are you
on to the
making-
next
I
one.
could make a suggestion, though, that's not related to the dash R policy. It would be great, oh, Matt left. It would be great, now that the technology department's been sort of formulated and established, to have a cybersecurity audit come like in the spring, preparation for the summer, to help set a baseline, establish, you know, any direction, that kind of thing. It's very, very reasonable. It's a really great process to go through. And the best cybersecurity guy in the state is a prospect parent, so, yeah.
Sounds good to me.
So are you making a motion on that?
No, well, my recommendation was that we don't vote on it because it's a -R, but that's up to Jason.
If nobody does a reading, we're good, we'll move right on. So we got second readings here.
2 of them are not -Rs.
2 of them are not.
Right, and the one that is a -R is the procedure that goes with the policy that's here for your action, right, EH?
Okay.
I move that we approve the second reading of, do you want to do them one at a time, Jason, or in a block?
That's fine.
BEDG, EH.
I'll second.
Any questions, concerns, comments? Seeing none and hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions, means perfect. Personnel, is this all going to non? Is that all going to non-public?
Hold on, is there a personnel report sheet in your packet? Yes, there is.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
We have a non-certified staff appointment, a part-time custodian. I plan to talk to you a little bit more about some other personnel in non-public. I don't see anything here that requires board action.
Okay, great. Sounds good to me.
No board action, all right. That brings us up to, next is public input. Nobody important out there, so I guess we're.
Oh, come on.
Seeing none, we'll move on. Future agenda and follow-up items, well, we have the truancy policy come back next month.
I have 9 items on my list that include a cybersecurity audit, which may not be on next month's agenda, but I take the notes so that we will take the action. We are coming back with truancy. We will have a presentation regarding a proposed innovation program next month. We've been calling it Granite State Academy. You'll remember it as the blended learning online and outdoor thing from about a year ago. We've been working under a grant to develop a proposal that you'll see. We're planning to have you see in February. More about that. Then I do owe you some reports on topics of interest, but I haven't lost track of any of them, so they're on this list. Also, more contextual information about teacher turnover kind of across the state and the country, as well as our context here. We do continue to have non-union benefits and how we can bring all those things together. That has been informed most recently by some of the developments in the current Barnstead negotiation that Eliza and Eunice are involved with. So it's helped me, after talking to Heidi, come up with a timeline that might make more sense. We are on this very complex, winding, more than one road that cross over each other to try to get to something simpler and more unified. And I don't know if it seems chaotic to you, but it sometimes seems chaotic to me these days. But we are bringing these things together. It's just taking time, and I think Eliza is with me on that right now. So I know I keep kicking that can, but not out of any effort to avoid it, but just because we continue to, we're working on so many different roads simultaneously, trying to bring them all together. I'll give you an update on how we've taken the homeschooler handbook and tried to improve outreach to homeschoolers, which I think includes now more homeschool students participating in some classes and programs here at the school. At least that's our objective, is to have more homeschool students participating in some classes and programs at any and all of our schools. So I think I have everything. Did I miss, is there something in particular from tonight's meeting that I
Not
didn't
tonight's,
get?
but didn't we discuss last meeting to discuss or have a review of PAC and how that's going and what attendance is like for that?
Yes,
And if that's something,
there was a conversation about that.
yeah, don't know if we put it on the agenda or, but I know we discussed
An
it.
update on PAC.
On the
Sure.
on the den
We
PACs
can do
or-
that
Yep.
for next time?
It is
Yeah.
now.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we did discuss it, I'm not sure if we actually.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
It was a discussion.
Yeah.
Well, just the schedule alone. Are we keeping the same schedule for next year? With the delayed openings? curious how that's working.
Anything else for, that sounds like a lengthy meeting.
Sounds like we're gonna be here a long
I
time.
might have COVID.
Pack a lunch.
Don't look at me.
Is there any other business to come before us tonight? Seeing none here, now moving on. So we now have non-public. I'll take a reading into that for somebody who wants to read this.
Make a motion to go into non-public RSA 91-A:3, 2, A, C, and K.
Second?
Yes?
Yes.
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 Yes,
Yes.
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 we are.